Welcome Scorpio to your in-depth weekly forecast for week commencing the 15th of April for the Ascendant, the Sun or the Moon. On the screen now I'm showing the event chart right at the start of the week. Now your co-ruler of Pluto, your modern ruler, is right there down on house 4 still, but forges a very positive link to the part of fortune tucked up there in house 12. Something that you're thinking about, doing research on, becoming much more conscious of, can have a powerful impact on understanding how you want the inner part of your world to be. So it may be that you could do some reading this week or some research or just some deep contemplation with their help. Now last week, your other ruler, your traditional ruler of Mars, was in that testy exchange with Saturn. Now it's true that conjunctions where planets are side by side and therefore unified are not necessarily all bad. And for you, they were occurring in house 5, which is where you can showcase your talent. Now, since Saturn moved into that area a year ago, maybe it has felt a bit of an uphill struggle. If you are a creative, or you're someone who's a performer, or you're a maker, perhaps you've had to really apply yourself in order to get an output. Now last week you may have reached a point where you could really see progress, or you may have felt somewhat frustrated. If you have felt frustrated about your love life, for example, that particular combination could have been a bit challenging. But Mars is inched forwards at the start of this week, which is really positive for you, but later this week it's forging a brilliant angle to Jupiter in your sector of relating. So if something was a bit stuck, tense, there were some discussions that weren't necessarily easy, there is an opportunity for things to flow and the air to be cleared as this week goes on. But of course the total solar eclipse was focused on your 6th house, which is to do with transformations in around the practicalities of your life. And if you are thinking differently about your health and fitness and diet and nutrition and routines and organisation and decluttering and just really applying a lot of virtuous energies to those areas, really good for you. And that could be the great benefit of the total solar eclipse for you over the next 6 months, because with Chiron in the mix, the knowledge you gain over that next half year can really be helpful. But it's important to understand the 6th house is very much the sector of marginal gains. So small changes, 6, and details, 6, can feed into the big picture in a very positive way. So even if you're not necessarily seeing total results at the moment, do acknowledge the changes you've made. However, the week begins back to the wheel with the moon in your sister water sign of Cancer, which she rules, but in house 9. That's suggesting that there's part of you that in a way may want to shrug off those obligations, responsibilities and duties coming from house 6 as the moon squares with the sun later on Monday. That provides a backdrop for the next week. What I would say, as much as your chart does speak of this virtue at the moment, what you don't want to be is virtuous but then resentful. So if you feel like breaking out, doing something more liberating, doing something for yourself personally that's more independent, seize the opportunity, because it will make you feel good. So if someone asks you to cover their shift or to do them a chore or provide some kind of support, if it doesn't really work for you, don't conflict your sense of freedom. I don't actually think that will be good for you this week. But as the week goes on, Mercury in its retreat meets the advancing position of Venus. If you are applying for a job, don't underestimate just how persuasive and charming that you can be with that combination, because Mercury might be in retrograde, but in house 6, that is very much in keeping with its energies and influence of the sign of Virgo. So your detailing, ability to provide a service that's very efficient, but also the personality and people skills could be very attractive to someone. So Friday could be a key day for a meeting for you, not least because on that day the sun moves into your opposite sign. You've already got Jupiter and Uranus inching closer together for their big meet later this month. The Sun comes into the equation, but it does square up with Pluto, your modern ruler, as this week draws to a close. The 7th house is an interesting area of astrology, because a lot of people would think that it's about relationships, which it can be, because it's very much in keeping with the energy of Libra, the 7th house, the descendant. But it's also where we can set our boundaries. And Uranus has been helping you with that over the last few years, maybe at times in a disruptive way, if you feel that someone is threatening your space, or trying to impose their will or their needs in a way that sees you lose your freedom. That's not been so easy for you to accept. Now, Jupiter, of course, brought a more positive dimension in a year ago in May, and you may have enjoyed some luck around connecting with someone influential, perhaps even romantically. So the Sun moves into this area, and it can promote the potential for cooperation, collaboration, but it's also important to set our boundaries. So it's not too much give. We're getting that tipping point right between what we need and how we tune into others. If that's sweet for you, I don't feel the square with Pluto will show itself so much, particularly if you're in an existing relationship. But if you are in a relationship of any kind, friendship, family, work, colleague, boss, or lover, where you don't feel heard, the Sun squaring up with Pluto could see you feeling more affected by that. And maybe the moon being in the 9th house in the quarter moon could also see you being a bit more outspoken. Now, obviously, you can be quite private in terms of personal information and your inner world. And with Pluto right on that 4th house cusp, that is still a consistent theme for you. But 7th house energy in traditional astrology was known as the sector of open enemies. So it's about dealing with the people at work that kind of have to get along with. They're not necessarily people we go for a drink afterwards with, but we still have to go through the process. And maybe you're going to become more conscious of who some of those people are over the next 4 weeks. But with Pluto in a way supporting you, being a bit stronger willed about making sure that what you get is important to the equation. So I feel the quarter moon, Mars moving away from Saturn, the lovely link between Mercury and Venus in the conjunction, and Mars then moving forwards by the end of the week to apply to Jupiter in a very energized way, suggests as this week goes on, it will shift from the more mundane, practical dimension into interacting with others more, but it has to work for you as well. It's been a real pleasure being with you, Scorpio. Have a great week. We've done some research and found that 55% of people who view my channel are not subscribers. If you're one of those, I really would be grateful if you could support our growth by clicking or tapping on the bell notification symbol and subbing.